Mayte Garcia was the woman Prince wrote one of his most famous songs about, the woman he married on Valentine's Day in a ceremony so private the world did not know it had happened, and the woman who sat next to him on Oprah's couch days after burying their infant son and smiled for the camera while he told the world everything was fine. She has been one of the few people close to Prince who has actually spoken at length about who he was behind closed doors, what their life together looked like, and what she now understands about the years that led to his death. The picture she paints is not the one most people have. It is darker, more complicated, and in places genuinely difficult to sit with. The story begins in Germany in 1990. Mayte was 16 years old, already a professional belly dancer with genuine talent, when her mother slipped a videotape of her performing to someone in Prince's entourage at one of his concerts. Prince watched it backstage the same night. He had Mayte brought to meet him. She was 16. He was 31 and one of the most famous musicians on the planet. What followed was years of phone calls and handwritten letters across the Atlantic while she finished high school in Germany, messages that Prince sent consistently and that she kept. By the time she was 17, he had arranged for her to move to Minneapolis, and he became her legal guardian so that she could travel internationally with his band without her parents present. She joined the new power generation as a dancer at 18. He told her to get on birth control when she was 19, and shortly afterward, they began a sexual relationship. They married when she was 22, and he was 37. Mayte has been careful over the years not to frame any of this as exploitative, and in interviews, she has pushed back against the word controlling when people have used it to describe him. She has said she loved every part of the life he introduced her to, that his direction over her appearance and her behavior never felt like pressure, that it felt like being shaped by someone who knew exactly what they were doing. But what the facts of the timeline reveal, regardless of how she frames them, is that she met the most powerful person in her world at 16, moved into his home at 17, and had never had a boyfriend before him. The entirety of her adult identity was formed inside his orbit, at his direction, with no outside point of reference. That is the foundation everything else sits on. Paisley Park was her whole world for years. She has described it as a place unlike anything else, a compound where life operated entirely on Prince's schedule and Prince's terms, where recording sessions started at midnight and went until dawn, where she was surrounded by an inner circle of people whose loyalty ran entirely to him. He dictated what she wore on and off stage. He docked her pay during a tour after a crew member spotted her eating whipped cream backstage. She found out through the tour accountant, not from him directly. She did not leave. She loved him, and the world he had built around her was the only world she knew. What broke that world was the death of their son. Mayte became pregnant 2 months after their wedding, and the pregnancy proceeded with Prince actively refusing to allow prenatal testing, citing his religious beliefs. He had converted to the Jehovah's Witnesses and believed that whatever was meant to happen was in God's hands. When Mayte began bleeding during the pregnancy and doctors recommended an amniocentesis to test for abnormalities, Prince refused. Their son Amir, whose name means prince in Arabic, was born on October 16, 1996 with Pfeiffer syndrome type 2, a severe and rare genetic condition causing premature fusion of the skull bones, skeletal abnormalities, and in the most serious cases, a cloverleaf formation of the skull where the eyes sit partially outside the sockets. Amir could not breathe without a ventilator. He died 6 days after he was born. Prince never acknowledged the death publicly. Not once, not in any interview during his lifetime. What Mayte revealed in her memoir was what the days immediately following looked like from inside that silence. She was still in the depths of grief, barely functional, when Prince told her that Oprah Winfrey was coming to Paisley Park that day to interview them. She begged him to say she was ill and cancel. He told her he needed her to do this. She sat on the couch in front of the cameras, wearing what she was told to wear, saying nothing about Amir because Prince had instructed her to stay quiet. When Oprah asked directly about the rumors surrounding the baby, Prince told her the family was fine, that they were just beginning, that they had many children ahead of them. Then he took Oprah on a tour of a nursery and playroom he had secretly built at Paisley Park as a surprise for the baby. Mayte had not seen it before that moment. Oprah walked through it on camera before Mayte ever set foot inside. She wrote in her memoir that she could not understand why he took Oprah in there. The room had everything a nursery needs, she wrote, except for the only thing a nursery needs. After Amir's death, Mayte suffered a miscarriage with their second pregnancy. By that point, the marriage was not recoverable. Prince had converted more deeply into his faith and told Mayte he believed their losses were a punishment from God. He spent increasing amounts of time with a woman named Manuela Testolini, who had joined his Bible study group. He told a press conference that his marriage to Mayte had been annulled when it had not been. He eventually ordered an assistant to destroy everything in Paisley Park that reminded him of Mayte and Amir, including, she was told, their son's ashes. She believed for years that Amir's ashes had been burned. It turned out to be untrue. A friend finally located them years after Prince's death, and Mayte was able to retrieve them personally from Minneapolis. She keeps them close to her at home in Las Vegas. The drug use, Mayte has said, was something she never saw directly. Prince did not take anything in front of her, not so much as a painkiller, not so much as an aspirin. He kept it hidden deliberately and completely. But looking back, she has been able to identify the moments during their marriage that should have registered as warning signs. There were episodes where he told her he was sick or had a migraine and retreated for stretches of time. He seemed loopy on certain occasions in ways that were out of character for a man who was otherwise intensely controlled and disciplined. Weeks after their wedding in 1996, she received a call in the middle of the night telling her that Prince had been rushed to the hospital unconscious. He told her afterward that he had mixed wine and aspirin for a headache and had a bad reaction. She believed him. She also noticed during the period after Amir's death, when she was struggling so badly that she had thoughts of suicide, that her Vicodin kept disappearing from around the house. At the time, she assumed he was hiding it to protect her from herself. She wrote in her memoir that she no longer knows what to think about that. The full timeline of his final days only became clear through investigation documents and interviews that emerged after his death. The problems had been building visibly for at least the final month of his life. On April 15, 2016, 6 days before he died, Prince's plane made an emergency landing in Moline, Illinois, after he passed out mid-flight following a performance in Atlanta. His team publicly described it as the flu. In private, his doctor prescribed oxycodone that same day and put the prescription in the name of his bodyguard, Kirk Johnson, to protect Prince's privacy. Johnson would later tell investigators that even at that point, he had not understood the full scale of what was happening, that he noticed Prince looking frail, but had explained it away. It was not until Prince passed out on that plane, Johnson said, that everything started to make sense. After the emergency landing, Prince cancelled several concert dates while his team urged him to rest. He put on a convincing public face. He biked to a record store. He hosted a party at Paisley Park and showed guests his new purple piano. He posted on social media that he was feeling rejuvenated. 5 days before he died, he was photographed at a jazz club watching a show, relaxed and polite with everyone around him, according to staff. The people who were not close to him had no idea anything was wrong. The people who were close to him were moving fast behind the scenes, calling SPC, trying to find a way to get him help without triggering a public story, respecting his privacy right up until the point that respecting his privacy became catastrophic. On April 20th, the day before he died, Prince was seen at his doctor's office. A urinalysis came back positive for opioids. His staff contacted a California addiction specialist named Dr. Howard Kornfeld, who runs a clinic called Recovery Without Walls in Mill Valley, telling him they were dealing with a grave medical emergency. Kornfeld could not travel to Minnesota himself, so he sent his son Andrew on an overnight flight with the plan of evaluating Prince that morning and determining whether he was a candidate for their treatment program. Prescription medications were found throughout Paisley Park during the investigation that followed, many of them mislabeled, hidden in vitamin bottles, scattered across different rooms of the compound. Several were prescribed under Kirk Johnson's name. None were prescribed to Prince himself. A pamphlet for Recovery Without Walls was found in the Purple Rain Room. Andrew Kornfeld arrived at Paisley Park on the morning of April 21st. He was met by Kirk Johnson and Prince's assistant Miron Becure, who brought him to the compound to meet with Prince before taking him to a Minnesota doctor who had cleared his schedule for that morning. But when they arrived, they could not find Prince anywhere. They searched the complex. They eventually found him alone in an elevator, unresponsive, already gone. Andrew Kornfeld later told investigators that Prince was still warm when they found him, but that rigor mortis had already begun setting in, meaning he had most likely been there for hours before anyone came looking. It was Kornfeld who called 911 at 9:43 a.m. in the morning. The two Prince representatives with him were too distraught to make the call themselves. The toxicology report showed fentanyl in Prince's blood at 67.8 micrograms per liter, a level outside experts called exceedingly high. There was also fentanyl in his liver and stomach. He had no prescription for fentanyl. Prosecutors concluded that he almost certainly did not know he was taking fentanyl at all, that what he believed were standard prescription painkillers were counterfeit pills laced with the synthetic opioid that is roughly 50 times more powerful than heroin. No one was charged. The source of the pills was never definitively identified. The Carver County attorney said they may never know where he got them, and the case was closed. Mayte found out that Prince was dead, not from his family, not from anyone at Paisley Park, but from a text message from Manuela Testolini, his second ex-wife, the same woman who had begun spending time with Prince while he and Mayte were still married. She was driving in Los Angeles when the message came through asking her to call. Testolini told her over the phone. Mayte has described it as an out-of-body experience, the kind of news that does not process in real time. She has said she regrets not reaching out to him earlier that year when she was hearing from mutual friends and former band members that he was not doing well. She had enough information to be worried. She did not make the call. That is something she carries. What Mayte ultimately describes is a man who spent his entire life building walls between what he felt and what the world was allowed to see, and who applied that same discipline to his own deterioration until it was too late for anyone to reach him. The addiction almost certainly started with real physical pain from years of performing in high heels every night on a body that was working at full intensity for decades. He never complained about it publicly. He never sought help publicly. He managed it privately, in the dark, the way he managed everything he did not want examined, and the people around him either did not know or protected his privacy so fiercely that getting him actual help became nearly impossible. He had told people he wanted to talk to someone about what was happening. He was scheduled to do exactly that the morning after he was found dead. He was 57 years old, alone in an elevator, and the people who loved him most found out the same way the rest of the world did.